Hello there. Welcome to Maths is Not a Mystery. We're going to be looking at Pythagoras Theorem today. Pythagoras Theorem is all about finding the length of a missing side on a triangle. It's got to be a right angle triangle, and you've got to know the lengths of the other two sides. But when you've got a missing side, you can use Pythagoras Theorem to work out what the length of that missing side is. Now, what you need to know for this is, first of all, that word there, the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always in the same place on a right angle triangle. Of course, the right angle triangle could be twisted around, but the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's always the side that doesn't have a right angle attached to it. These other two sides have got a right angle where they join. The hypotenuse hasn't. So whichever way round the triangle is, if it's a right angle triangle, the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's always the one that doesn't join to another with a right angle. Okay, when you know what the hypotenuse is, then it's helpful, because the Pythagoras theorem says this: the square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. So what does that actually mean? Okay, what it means is that this number, whatever the number is for the hypotenuse, squared, is the same number as if you add up this number squared plus this number squared. Let's do it more carefully so that you can see what we're talking about. This one I can do in my head. So can you. The majority of Pythagoras questions you're going to need a calculator for. And for that reason, it's most likely to appear on the calculator paper in your exam. Very, very unlikely to not do. So what do? Well, it's quite simple. Okay, one of these is going to be side 1, the other one is going to be side 2. It doesn't matter which it is. So I'm going to decide that side 1 is 3 centimetres. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to square it. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, so you're finding the square on that side, the square of that side. Side 2 then is the other one. Could have done these the other way around, it wouldn't have mattered. Side 2 is 4 centimetres. So 4 squared is 16. Okay, so all we're doing there is we're taking the number and we're multiplying it by itself. 3 times 3 makes 9. 4 times 4 makes 16. We're then going to add those two squares together, because it's the sum of the squares, as it said up here. So we're going to do a sum. We're going to add those two squares together. 9 plus 16 makes 25. And 25 is the size of the square. If we drew a big square off this hypotenuse, that's the size of the square that's on there. To find the actual length of it, we have to find the square root. The square root of 25, as you know, is 5. So the length of the hypotenuse is 5. H equals 5. And if you want to get full marks, don't forget to put the units. 5 is not the answer. 5 centimetres is the answer. You will get extra marks for writing the units. So let's just double check on what we did there then. We took the length of one side and we times it by itself. We took the length of the other side and we times it by itself. And then we added those together. And when we got our new answer, we found the square root of it. Because we've squared everything to start with, we've got to go back by finding the square root of it. Why did we add? Well, we added because we were finding a side that was longer than the other two. If we were finding a side that was shorter, we'd subtract, but we'll talk about that later. Here's another one that you can do in your head. So side 1 this time, I'm going to say it's the 6 centimetre one. 6 squared, 6 sixes are 36. The second side, side 2, is 8 centimetres. 8 squared, 8 eights are 64. 36 plus 64 now. Add them together. 36 plus 64 make 100. The square root of 100 is 10. So H this time is 10 centimetres. So again, get the first side, square it. Get the second side, square it. Add your squares together, get a new answer, square root it. And that's it. That's how you do Pythagoras. Let's do one that you're going to need a calculator for, because most things will need a calculator. Those two that I've just shown you now are kind of quite rare. The first one of those was called the 3, 4, 5 triangle. And then I made the second one simply by doubling it, so it was 6, 8, 10. Alright, so this time then we've got 8 centimetres and 5 centimetres, and we're going to find h, the hypotenuse. So side 1, let's do it the other way around this time. I've been always using the bottom first, so I'll use the top first. 8 squared is 64. Okay, 8 times 8. Side 2 is 5. 5 times 5. 5 squared makes 25. Now, from this point on, I'm going to just use a calculator to make sure that you're seeing exactly what's happening with it. So let's just pop a calculator over here that we can see it well enough. Okay, so on here, always clear a calculator before you start it. I'm going to do 64 plus 25 equals 89. Okay, so 64 plus 25 makes 89, and we need to find the square root of 89. Now, this is why you're going to need a calculator, because the square root of 89 is going to be a number with decimals in it, because 89 isn't a square number. So the square root, on my calculator here, the square root sign looks like that, square root of x. Sometimes it doesn't actually show you the x in there. All you do is you put the number in normally, the 89, and then hit the square root button, and there we go, we've got a number. It's 9 point something. Should it be 9 point something? Use your common sense. The square root of 81 is 9. The next square number up is 100. Square root of that is 10. So it is going to be a number between 9 and 10. So that makes sense. 9.43. We're not going to write all that down, are we? We're going to usually do it to 2 decimal places. 9.43. We would use that third 3 as a rounding figure. And because it's 3, it keeps this one down at 9.43. Alright, so that means that h equals 9.43 meters. Make sure, please, every time that you use the correct units. Alright, now look at this next question then, because I think you've hopefully got the idea of what we're doing. Now the next question, we're not being asked to find the hypotenuse. On this question here, we are being asked to find one of the shorter sides. We know the size of the hypotenuse. We know the size of one of the shorter sides, and now we've got to find the size of the remaining side. So, on this one, the hypotenuse is 9 centimetres, so it's exactly the same so far. Square it. Okay, 9 centimetres squared makes 81. Side 1, which I'll call that one, is 7 squared. 9 plus 7, 7 squared makes 49. But now, we've got to just make sure we know what we're doing. We're finding a shorter side, so we need a smaller number. So this time it's going to be 81 minus 49. And obviously it's always the big number minus the little number. So it's always going to be the hypotenuse take away the number that's left. Okay, so on our calculator then, let's take a look at what we need to do. On our calculator, I'm going to start off by making sure everything's clear. 81 minus 49 equals 32. I know you can do that one in your head, but the calculator is already there, so why not? The square root of 32, it's going to be between 5 and 6, isn't it? Because 5 squared is 25 and 6 squared is 36. So this is going to be 5 point something. We know that before we start, so let's hit the square root button. And there we are, 5.6568, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm going to make that 5, do apologise, 5.66. Do you know why I've done that? 65 and then it's followed by a 6. 6 is closer to the next number up than the next number down, so it makes that 5 round up to 6. If you're not sure about rounding, watch the video that we do on that and make sure you know what we're doing with it. So side A equals 5.66 centimetres. So we subtracted rather than divided. Rather than added on that occasion. Let's just do one more to make sure that we fully feel like we understand what we're doing. So once again, we've been given the hypotenuse as a measurement, and then we've been given one of the shorter sides, and we're being asked to find the other short side. So on here then, hypotenuse is 10. 10 squared is 100. The other side, side 1, is 8. 8 squared is 64. We're going to be doing 100 minus 64. Now this one you can actually do in your head because it's one that we've already done earlier, but it doesn't matter. We'll put it on the calculator anyway, just to show that everything works out happily. 100 minus 64 is 36. So hopefully you already know what the answer is. The square root of 36, and we'll press it on the calculator just to be certain, square root of 36 is 6. And so n equals 6 centimetres. So that's how we do Pythagoras then. Okay, let's just go back to the very beginning of this and check what the rule said to start with. It said the square on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the other two sides. So as a brief reminder, we take one of our sides and we square it. We take the second side and we square it. We then either add or subtract. We add if we're trying to find the longest side. We subtract if we already know the longest side and we're trying to find a shorter side. Whatever we do, we get an answer and find a square root of it. And that completes it. That's Pythagoras. Look in the practice book if you want more help. There's a couple of practical examples in the practice book as well. Hope that's made sense for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye.